And so, like I was saying the other day, Sammy, is like I'm super excited. And if you missed this story on the Tyler Scott show, I'm going to tell it here real briefly. Is that it's special to me to go to the Cardinals game. This will be the first time I've been to that stadium that's not when it's not a Super Bowl. So whenever you go to a stadium and it's a Super Bowl, like I've been to Minnesota, Dallas, some of these other ones, like I've been there during Super Bowls. They look completely different because they have all the auxiliary seating. This is not only a chance to go out there and see that stadium in Glendale, Arizona. I finally want to be able to make sure, like, I can't believe the last time I missed it. I missed the Pat Tillman Memorial. And similarly, I want to just go out there and see this rivalry because, believe it or not, I know nobody knows this, but the Cardinals used to be a Chicago team and they were the rivals and they played at Comiskey Park. And my dad used to say, like, it was impossible to get tickets to go see the Bears at Wrigley Field. So what we would do is go and when they played in Comiskey, and we would be sitting amongst Cardinals fans and everything like that. It was always a big thing. He also admitted, and I know Braggs doesn't want to hear this, but like he said, Comiskey was actually a better park. Yeah, as a Cubs fan, he even said that kind of stuff. So I'm very excited to get out there on Sunday because there's so many things going on. I'm really looking forward to this week. I think it's going to be a great time. Got my credentials secured, everything like that. We're going to be out there for that game. Could not be more excited. Could not be more excited for the show tonight. So, Sammy, let's go ahead and get started.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois, the sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
What is up, everybody? It is Wednesday night. You know what that means. It is time for Take It to the Rank, one of the best nights on the sports calendar, an extra special night. This evening, not only do we have Take It to the Rank, which of course leads into eventually the Tate Never Lies Network. We've got AEW, big show tonight, AEW Dynamite. We love all those stuff. I think the challenge is still going on. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. The challenge is one thing that has fallen off for me since the NFL season has started. We also have Game 5 of the World Series. I sit here and I think about poor Steve Bartman, who a couple of years ago, it's been forever, sitting there in the stands, minding his own business. And, you got headphones on. You're not maybe paying, you're not keenly aware of what's going on. A ball comes towards you and you're like, hey, what am I going to do? He gets run out of Chicago. And then these guys in New York orchestrate a thing like, hey, we're sitting on the rail. If the ball comes near us, we got to be like, you don't have to be. You can be mindful. Whenever I'm sitting there in the front row, I'm always like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to let Freddie Freeman lead into me or something like that. But at the same time, like, I'm not going to actively try to break his arm or his Mookie Betts, excuse me. I'm not going to do any of that. That was a little bit too much, but a lot of cool stuff going on. So we appreciate you joining us here this evening. And you know what? Without further ado, let's bring out my co-host for the evening and every week from CHGO. It's Greg Braggs. You're in your room again. You're no longer in the garage. I can only take this as a good sign. This is good for you.
We're starting. It's like Bob Seger. We're turning the page. Come on now. So we're trying. I mean, this is one of those games that just like it's hard to shake. By now, most weeks we're looking ahead and excited about the matchup, and I certainly am. And both of us are going to be in Arizona, but it is hard to turn the page. But yeah, no longer in the garage, the therapy garage with the cigar in hand and the whiskey and diet. I'm here back in the home studio. But you're right about this guy in the stands, like, but I asked myself, like, what could the Bears fans in Washington have done to avoid the Hail Mary? Like, who cares about the Yankees? If somebody would have ran on the field and given Noah Brown a little nudge.
If it was like the old dog pound where the stands were right there. Would you have reached out? No, I don't know. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that too, because I sit here and I'm moving again, try to move on. So Wednesdays for me, traditionally, I go on with Sportsnet in Canada. I do one of their radio shows. Right. I do a thing with Talk Sport over there in Great Britain. And then I also worked on a show. I did a show. I think it was one of the Vegas networks, one of their betting networks I was on. And so it's so funny because like typically Wednesday is the like, hey, like everything's done. The fantasy rankings are out. The power rankings are out. We're looking at a new season. And it was like, hey, can we? I'm like, okay. Yeah, of course you're going to ask me about this. I've got the whole act. I've got the whole, like, which version do you want? Do you want the 7-minute? Do you need the 3-minute? Like, what do we want to do? Like the whole roller coaster of emotions and everything that's going on. I was at a burger joint today, happened to look up on the ESPN. And you're like, oh, there it is again. So it will chase us at least for another couple of days, and hopefully, as time moves on, we forget about this. Even then, like I was trying to tell people about the Miami Miracle. They're like, what was that play? I'm like, don't you remember they put Gronk out on the field? They did a couple of laterals, and then Kenyon Drake was like, yeah, I guess. Like, people will eventually forget about this. People will eventually move on. It's like that monument at the end of the original Red Dawn, where all the names are carved into the stone, and only Leah Thompson goes back to see those names. Nobody cares about this anymore, and I hope we can put it behind us. I will say, though, that obviously with media availability on Wednesday, the Bears did have to atone for it. Matt Eberflus, finally, to some people, said, hey, that's on me, guys. That it starts with coaching. Greg, I'm not going to be obtuse and pretend I don't see you on Twitter. How did you feel about Matt Eberflus finally coming to the acknowledgement that maybe the coaching staff could have done a better job there?
Well, it's about damn time, right? I think that's the first, reaction you have to it. And then it's like, you know what? Say it with a little more conviction. Why? What are you hiding from? It's the elephant in the room. Yeah. We all know you should have taken a few more timeouts. We know that Doug Kramer shouldn't have had the ball. These are obvious things. Your players are speaking about them publicly. And if you're not wanting to say them publicly to the media because you don't want to give the media an inch, I get it, but it's a backwards way of thinking, because all you're doing then by not, by doubling down, tripling down, even if you don't mean it, Sunday and Monday saying, oh, those 13 yards didn't matter. I don't believe for a second that he actually believes that. I just don't think he wants to give the media the satisfaction of admitting it was wrong.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the timeouts. He doesn't want to just say it. David Kaplan on ESPN 1000 asked him, and he's like, no, just say it. It's okay. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I just think it speaks to a guy that's worried about his job security. And that's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And at the end of the day, I just think he'd do himself more favors than not if he was a little more open and honest with what was going on. And today he took some accountability. At the end of the day, Sunday will be here faster than we know it, and we can all move on to whatever new coaching decision we're going to be yelling about. But for this week, they all got to kind of wear it. It's not been the best week for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, it was really, you do shows with Cole Kmet. Well, I do mine with Tyler. We did our deal with Tyler Scott here, and you still have to address it. And it really does, like, we gotta talk about this, like, kind of thing. Like, we had other things planned. I wanted to do fun things, but you're like, let's talk about this. What was it like? What was the plane ride like? What was Tyreek Stevenson's mood like? So we do have to wear this. And that, again, it's unfortunate because the coach could go ahead and stamp this out on Sunday evening. Be like, I got to do a better job there. That's on me. Don't worry about it. We're going to handle this with Tyreek Stevenson in the house.
But look at Tyreek Stevenson. He
did. Actually, he did. He was the guy who wore it.
He steps up to the team on Monday, and he doubles. He didn't have to go to the media after that. He's not ever available on Mondays, Tyreek Stevenson, but it's typically Cole Kmet and a couple other guys, and it's never Tyreek Stevenson. He not only spoke to the team, first and foremost, that's all that matters, but then he also went to the media because the media is going to then relay that message to the fans. Because everybody goes, oh, well, what is Tyreek Stevenson or Matt Eberflus owe to the media? He doesn't owe you guys anything. Of course not. Of course not. But it's the whole it's about speaking to the fans. So you have to do that by speaking to the media. And so, credit to Tyreek Stevenson for taking accountability and stepping up to the podium when he didn't have to. Your head coach took till Wednesday to do that.
Yeah, that is that part of it like really bugs me. And it's funny because Tyreek Stevenson was on Twitter that afternoon. Maybe some of you had gone to bed or turned off Twitter or whatever, but Sunday evening, at least here on the West Coast, Tyreek Stevenson had put out his message on a lot of social media platforms. And I remember reading that and I'm like, I read it. I'm like, all right, cool. Like that, it was so easy to move past it at that point because you're like, okay, he admits it. Like, yeah, he should have done better. Thank you for saying that. You're good. Like, there's nothing that bothers me more than when people have to deny or like we have eyes, like we get it because I remember it in the sense of like, oh, we're now seeing the fan video. That looks really terrible. And then Tyreek Stevenson addressed it within an hour or two. And you're like, okay, young man made a mistake. We've all been there. Maybe not at an NFL level. It's something that you just don't expect to see. Like, it's funny when you watch like The Rock looking down the ramp at the Titantron, not understanding that the Undertaker is behind him. That's entertaining. That's funny. Not quite as funny when it's your favorite football team. Somebody doing that in real life. Like, and I think it was Pat McAfee who even explained, like, if you were doing a movie and you wanted to establish somebody as the arrogant a-hole right off the top, that's how you would do it. And then you would be like, this is unbelievable. Like, that, where would this happen? Who would do something like this? And they'll be like, oh yeah, that's it. That's right. It's our team that did it.
It's brutal. It's brutal. And it's never a dull moment with the Chicago Bears. And, you know, for people that were, I mean, when they took the lead, we were at a bar in Wrigleyville doing our live show with CHGO Bears. And
who jinxed it? Somebody there jinxed
that
it.
Would be, to no one's surprise, that would be Mark Carman.
Of course.
Because Adam Hogue and I both.
Hogue would never.
We were on opposite sides of the bar, but both Hogue and I were on the same page in terms of this game isn't over.
Calm down, everybody.
Everyone stop celebrating. I had people trying to buy me shots. They're like, what kind of shot do you want? I don't want a shot. The game isn't over. Don't even say that you want a shot. The football gods are listening, and Carm is
right when you ordered the Malort, that's when the loss was predetermined.
Exactly. And Carm is harassing Hogue's like the game's not over. So Mark Carman is to blame. He jinxed this.
There was it's my friend Dan, who's not even a Bears fan. He's a Buccaneers fan, who came over and I'm like, why are you hugging me? I look like Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh. Like, what are you doing? Like, get away from me. Like, don't approach me right now. There's 28 seconds. And then remember, like, they run the play and only 1 second comes off the clock. And you're like, what is going on? Like, these guys, like, all right, the fix is in or whatever. And then you're like, okay, then they run out the clock.
Do you remember the Monday Night Miracle with Devin Hester? I mean, as he scores, as you're aware. I'm
aware of this play, yes.
Devin Hester scores the touchdown, but the thing that I'm calling back to that maybe some don't remember is as they pan to the sidelines, everyone's freaking out like they won. Arizona still had like a minute and a half with the ball and could get to field goal range to win the game. And so they pan to the sidelines as Devin Hester, you are ridiculous. Mike Tirico on the call, the Monday Night Miracle comeback. And Brian Urlacher is telling his teammates, they're all freaking out. And he's pointing the field like, we got to go back out there, boys.
Yeah.
You know, and so like.
But then somebody was pointing to the other sideline and said, but Matt Leinert's the quarterback. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
They got in field goal range.
I know they did. Yeah, that was the problem.
They missed it. That was the even crazier part of that. So we, Monday night, the Sunday, I don't know, Sunday matinee national stage miracle. I don't know. That doesn't have as nice of a ring to it.
That is the funny thing is I was at the NFL Network's. I was on the news desk back in those days, working on the news desk, and we would do these things called quick takes that we would put on the NFL Game Center right after that. And I rewrote it like 6 times. And I remember one of the guys coming up to me because I still am a huge Matt Leinart fan. And like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel better because like Leinart's looking good? And I'm like, I don't give a, I'm like, no, like, forget him. Like I want him to go 14 or 15-1. Like, this is not one of the games I want him to win. But I remember writing that up about like Matt Leinart had done this. And then that happens. And I always want to take credit because had I not written that, I'm not sure that the Bears would have rallied. And mindfully, like I was still sort of thinking like, hey, why don't I write this ahead of time? Like a great sports writer jinx, like, yep. Because, I know there's got to be like some Commanders blogger who was writing up like, Commanders blew another one. Dan Campbell blows it again to jinx the Bears, and it paid off. And I'm sure that young man or woman is proud of themselves. Like I did the sports writer jinx.
Our producer had it all written out, right, for our post-game show that we're trying to go live as fast as possible.
Right.
So he had a whole thing written out about how they won the game. I was prepared to walk out of the post-game show and credit the Chicago Bears for a fourth quarter championship effort. I thought on both sides of the ball, they showed that what you see with great teams and that championship will of winning the war of attrition. You get into a slugfest and now you're in the fourth quarter trading punches, and the Bears were beating the Washington Commanders faces in on both sides of the football. And I was proud. I was proud of how they did that. And even despite the Doug Kramer stupidity on the goal line, they did not blink. They got a 3-and-out, got the ball back, and went right back down the football field and took the lead. And I just thought it was just such a showcase of their resolve and toughness in an environment like that. And then for it to all fall apart. I mean, it's one of the most bizarre games where you go from having no business to win to winning the football game to how the hell did we just lose that? It all within a 4-minute span in the blink of an eye. It was
unbelievable.
One of the most surreal games I've ever seen.
And I was talking to Tyler about this yesterday. I told him, I said, when DeAndre Swift scored a touchdown and we're down 12-7, I was like, oh, we're winning. We're winning. I was convinced at that point, like, we're winning. Like, I'm like, the Commanders are not going to score again. Like, they're done. They've scored. Like, they're not scoring anymore. We've seen this out of the Bears. They give up a ton of yards. They don't give up a lot of points. They have not allowed over 20 points. What is it now? 13, 14 consecutive games.
Yep.
We're fine. They're not scoring. And I remember even saying this to people during the thing. And I want to root for a team that when they're not playing their best, they go out there and they still find a way to win. We've seen Aaron Rodgers do this to us so many times where you're like, we got him. And then there's Randall Cobb running buck naked down the middle of the field. You're like, son of a big, what the hell? It was nice to finally be that like we're that team. And then even they get there, and then this is the best. Like, this is the funniest part, because like all these narratives go away. Like nobody's talking about it. Nobody remembers where their mind was before the desperation heave, the Hail Mary, which, by the way, the Hail Mary is one play in NFL history. It's Roger Staubach in the 75, 78 NFC divisional playoff game. Because he said, like, I stepped back, I said a Hail Mary, I threw the ball to Drew Pearson. I wish Corey Wooten was here because he would back me up on this. It's like, that is one play, just like the immaculate reception. You don't say like, well, there's not multiple immaculate receptions. Similarly, there should not be multiple Hail Mary. Like, it's one play. There's only one ghost to the post. This is the thing. Like, NFL fans have no idea of history. Like, they just don't. Like, there's still people, like, I could go through the NFL Network studios right now and I would find kids who work there who'd be like, Gronk played for the Patriots. Be like, shut up. I can't stand it. I'm getting off the point though. This is not a weave. I'm coming back to my point. The narratives that went away is that, and then even so 12-7, we get down there, and I knew the Doug Kramer play was coming. I'm like, we've gone too long with Doug Kramer in the backfield without, I know the way these people think. You want to have your own refrigerator. This is not the time. This is not the time. Like this, I know what you're going to do. I'm trying to stop you from doing it. Let's do this when we're up on New England by 3 touchdowns. Let's do the Doug Kramer play then. This is not the moment. Give the ball to Roschon Johnson. Let him run into the end zone, and let's finish this game off. There goes the Doug Kramer play. Fumble. Even in that moment, I'm like, we're still winning. We're going to 3-and-out this team, and we're going to get the ball back, and we're going to score. And we did it. Like, multiple times came back and all that stuff. And then the things happened the way they were. It's just like, You gotta be kidding me. You just but nobody wants to talk. And like you said, the way you described that fourth quarter, people want to pretend that didn't happen. And I see Bears fans doing this. Like, let's not ignore. I'm like, I'm not ignoring. Let's not ignore where your mindset was with 28 seconds left on that clock, because there was a lot of things that you should be positive about and feel good about. And it's what I was talking about after the game. And obviously I'm upset. Obviously I want to win that. It's going to hurt us possibly for a wild card berth or anything like that. But you can't ignore the fact that our guy got us to that point. It was not on. Caleb did nothing wrong. And I know that Caleb, and to his credit, came out today and was like, I could have done a lot of things in the first three quarters that would have put us. Stop it. You got us there. We needed to finish it at that point. And to me, people just seem to ignore that. And I don't think that's fair to Caleb.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I think that we don't have to treat Caleb Williams with kid gloves. I think he isn't beyond criticism, and I think those first three quarters were as bad as he's played since week one, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Sure. He's still a rookie, and he's going to have those moments, and it is encouraging the way he was able to come back despite that and play the way he did in the fourth quarter. He was just way too amped up, and it is incumbent on Caleb Williams and Shane Waldron to figure out how they can get going faster, because that is one of the biggest things holding this team back right now, because 100%. Once they hit their stride in the second half of games, they're a great football team. They're not a good football team in the first half, and in the second half, on both sides of the ball, they play complementary football. So, it's just one of those things where that's, it's going to take time, and Caleb Williams is going to have his ups and downs, but until we get to a point where he can show consistency for 4 quarters of play, you're going to run yourself into moments where, you're going to have the game on the line at the end. The defense is always going to keep you in it, right?
For sure.
So it's just about, how can this offense start to hold up their end of the bargain? When you're holding teams 13 straight games under 21 points or less, I think the defense is averaging 17 points per game on the season. You got to be winning more of these games, and these players feel it. They're sitting here thinking they should be 5-2 or 6-1.
6-1, yeah.
Right. I think maybe the most, the Jalen Johnson saying that we should be 6-1, and there might be another a reasonable, hey, I'll meet you in the middle Bears player that's all right, I'd take 5-2, but none of them are happy with 4-3, and I'm glad they're not. They should be better than 4-3 right now. So we'll see. We'll see how they respond. This is such a great test in a winnable game. It's not like they're playing the Chiefs this week, and it's a winnable game, but it's not a pushover. So I think it's a great test to see how this team responds off of what happened here last Sunday.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I don't want to, and I agree, and I need to be a little bit better about that myself. I'll take responsibility here, not be as forgiving. I do that in the moment, in that when we didn't go 3 and out in our second drive, I'm like, oh wow, we actually got a first down. I was surprised. It's these things that you don't like. The Bears slow starting, if I was more in tune with the gambling side of things, would be this would be something that I would consider if that was something that I was into, whether you are or not. And speaking of which, the world's largest sports book in Las Vegas is right at your fingertips in Illinois. The Circa Sports app is sports betting the way it should be. Bet anywhere in Illinois and experience high betting limits, better moneyline splits, more in-game betting, and the best customer service. Download your new bookie today. Visit circasports.com and start betting like a pro from anywhere in Illinois. And if you or someone you know has a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234, the Circa Sports app. And I think that's the last time I saw. No, because I was in Chicago when I saw you last. But let's talk about this game coming up against the Arizona Cardinals. Do you believe, for me, when I look at this, and people are asking me, which way are you leaning? What do you think? And I'm like, obviously, I'm going to pick the Bears to win. I'm excited to see how this team responds, because we are going to find out almost immediately what this team is made of. Are they a cohesive unit? Are they going to be galvanized by this? We talked about this on Monday night with Corey Wooten. the more that we get close, or the closer we get to this game, I'm getting excited because I'm excited to see the way the Bears respond. How about you?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said before, I think it's a great test. I definitely think that you're going to see a team that has a sense of urgency in the Chicago Bears when they come out. I mean, come on, man. These guys are competitors, and they're getting dragged through the coals this entire week. They know it. They showed up to practice today. I'm sure words were said to each other about, this is how football teams use, to me, a football teams typically will use these kind of moments to band together, right?
Yeah.
Us against the world, even if they were the ones to be the self-inflicted wounds.
They did this to themselves.
They did it, but at the end of the day, now, hey, they use it, and channel it the right way. And that's my hope. It's not a guarantee, but I do have a lot of hope and encouragement that is how they're going to come out. Now, again, Arizona's no pushover, and Kyler Murray is going to be a challenge, just like Jaden Daniels was, as far as keeping him contained. Marvin Harrison Jr., we all understand who he is. But I'll take my chances with the way the Bears cover. James Conner, I see Alex Ramos in the chat bringing him up. Yeah, he's absolutely a concern. The Bears stopping the run is something week to week that they have to continue to make sure they're dialed in on, especially when you're going up against a dual threat quarterback that you also have to take into consideration. Now, if you flip it to the other side of the football, so this is just like last week. Like, the only thing that surprised me in the Washington game was the fact that the Bears could not move the ball and score on offense against Washington's defense. Washington's defense is not good. And statistically all year, they've shown a propensity to give up plays through the air, and the Bears could not find a way to find those plays. The same can be said for this week. As good as Arizona's offense is, I don't care who your offense is. I know what this Bears defense is going to do, just like they did on the Sunday night stage against the Houston Texans. I know what to expect from them. I don't care who your offense is. But on the other side of the ball, this defense for the Arizona Cardinals is something where the Bears can take advantage of and move the ball and make plays. Why they didn't against Washington, I think a lot of it was because Caleb Williams was too amped up. So this week, going into Arizona, you're going to have a lot of Bears fans on your side there. It's going to be a hyped up environment. This is a huge game. But I think from last week with Caleb Williams, where the hype was more about getting too hyped up for his own personal things, being number one versus number two, having 200 of your family and friends in the stands. It's a national stage moment. This is more about being hyped up for the team. And so I think this is an opportunity for them to, use that energy the correct way and come out swinging against the Arizona Cardinals and actually move the football against a defense that you should be able to find some spots in.
Yeah, that kind of goes under the radar a little bit because obviously it was not a Sunday night football game with Chris Collinsworth and Mike Tirico, but still it was a late afternoon window game with Tony Romo and Jim Nantz and Caleb Williams playing back in Maryland for the first time as a professional. All sorts of things like that working into his favor. It's kind of like a guy who's, out there on that first tee in front of a bunch of people, little extra juice, trying to get that extra swing on the driver and ends up, pushing it into the woods on the right or wherever it is. And so those are the kind of things that, again, I think it comes back to coaching and, hey, making sure that these players are focused and ready to go and coming off a bye week. I think, having your routine disrupted recently too. So I'm okay. Again, I'm not making excuses. That was a winnable game. That's a game. I mean, honestly, if Tyreque Stevenson is just paying a little bit of attention to what he's doing out there. And again, I don't mean to draw it back to him. We accept his apology and everything like that. But at the same time, you're like, dude, like you had one job, I
just think that fans and even media people, they're afraid to be overly critical of Caleb Williams because we all want him to, we all are hopeful for his greatness for the rest of his career. But I also think that people are afraid to be critical of him because they're going to let some Justin Fields fan win an argument that they started 7 months ago, or some Washington Commanders fan that's been harassing you for the last 2 months that they got the better quarterback. Don't worry about what those people have to say. It's okay to criticize Caleb Williams and say, hey, he needs to be better at this, this, and this, because I know he's going to be great. But these are still the things they have to work on. Everybody always just wants to blame Shane Waldron or the offensive line. But at the end of the day, Caleb Williams holds some accountability to this puzzle too. And if he can find himself settled in faster, this offense will find their way to operating smoother in a faster manner.
I'm curious too, because I think one of the reasons why the Bears had a little bit of a slow start going up against the team, and I don't remember what the Commanders were against the run. I'm looking up the Cardinals right now. Not a great team against the run, not a great team against the pass defensively. They need to make sure that DeAndre Swift, one of the reasons why this team's played so well over the previous couple of weeks, even last week, fine, is because DeAndre Swift, once DeAndre Swift is dialed in, this offense is at peak control. And I felt like at times they get away with it. I know that they've been trying. They put Caleb out there. They give him a call sheet because they want him to make calls. They want him to make checks at the line. They want him to do a lot of different things. That's the one thing that I admired about the Bears this year, is that honestly, they could have gone out there and been like, look, make one call. You only throw to one side of the field. You do this, run all the time, and you would probably be very successful, and you would help people win fantasy games, and they would love you. Mm-hmm. What the Bears are trying to do is make their quarterback better, to kind of grow him up. You've heard Tom Brady and Peyton Manning talk about this at great length about, like, we don't challenge quarterbacks anymore. Like, we don't make them play quarterback. We try to make it as simple for them as possible, and we wonder why we're not developing players. But the Bears, I believe, are really doing a nice job of that, like giving Caleb Williams a lot. But do you think they could dial it back a touch? Because I go back to the fourth down play with DJ Moore, and I don't know if anybody's addressed this, and I keep looking through watching some of the press conferences. I still feel like that was a Caleb call on that one. I know he loves that play, and I literally hate it. Run the ball, sir. But at the same time, do you think they dial it down just a touch and be like, hey, let's run the football here and get back to what makes it successful, kind of like what they did against the Rams?
No, I think that they're giving Caleb Williams the full reign to identify what's at the line of scrimmage and make that determination. At the end, I got my Purdue flag here behind me on my back shoulder. Purdue plays their first exhibition game at Mackey tonight, and they have a great head coach. They made it to the national championship, Matt Painter. And one of the things he always says, almost in every post-game press conference, is, fans look at the results and coaches and players look at the process. Because at the end of the day, sometimes the results can be out of your control. And so you're not loving the play to DJ Moore because it didn't work. Did you have the same criticism a month ago when they ran that exact same play and it did work?
100%. Absolutely.
Okay, well, at least you're consistent.
Hated it.
But most fans wouldn't be, right? Most fans got the first down, nice play. Don't get the first down, bad play.
No, and it's awful. It's awful to me.
Yes,
it's like if my child jumped off the roof to the neighbor's roof, I would be like, if he's safe, and I'm not putting the girl in this one. If my boy is safe, be like, I'm glad you're safe. Don't do that again. That's the way I do not. I literally do not like that play.
Well, and then you know what? Normally we see eye to eye on most things, and I just don't think we do on this one, because to me, he's identifying what's at the line of scrimmage, and then he's determining, okay, I have one-on-one with DJ Moore on the outside. You also have to give credit to Washington's defender, the way he closed on that play. But the other thing I will say is, DJ Moore, man, you got to beat that guy. Yeah. Sometimes the player's got to make a play. Their defender on that time made a play, but it's one-on-one. You are one of the toughest yards after catch runner, and you got to beat that guy. Help your quarterback out. He just decided you're the guy that's going to get us the first down here. I understand where you're coming from. Roschon Johnson's success rate on goal line, carries and those kind of situational short yardage carries, he's great. So why?
I think it's $1 million for $1 million so far.
Yeah,
but okay.
Like keep going to that. Well, I totally understand that, but you know what? Then the time it doesn't work, you're going to have a lot of talking heads out there saying, "Oh, why didn't you do this, that, and the other?" So like, I'm not going to. To me, it's a play that had every opportunity. I'm not calling you a talking head, sir. We're all talking heads at the end of the day. I got probably the biggest talking head of anybody, but then at the same time, this is what it's all about. We're having fun with it. But to me, I don't have a problem with the play. It can work in its right scenario as long as DJ Moore can make a play there. He just did it. And credit to Washington's DB. He closed on it.
I think he recognized it and he closed immediately. Like he closed before the snap, and I wish Caleb would have seen that. That's when we were like the 3D chess part of this is the time you'll actually be able to really burn me on this is when Caleb then sees the guy come in and he pump fakes and then DJ Moore takes off and it's a wide open 60-yard touchdown because the DB bit on it. If that's what you're setting up eventually, then I'll be like, okay, then I've got to give you credit where credit's due. And I agree. Like if you have this play in your playbook, okay, fine. I might not like it. Now I'm starting to sound like Phil. Be like, we got to run the football.
Oh, you know, Phil, exactly. Yeah. Phil, you know what Phil's going to say there, right? Yeah. Go heavy, hat on a hat and get out there and will them across that line of scrimmage. Don't get cute. Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Look at the 2-point conversion. Many people aren't talking about it, right?
Dope. Yeah.
Great play, right? If they don't get it, what are people saying? You're getting cute. Give the ball to Roschon Johnson. That's a trick type play that the Kansas City Chiefs run to perfection all the time. But that's not, that's a pitch. How many times have they run that in a game? They haven't run it once in a game. And now you're running it in a pivotal moment. But it worked because they executed it. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about is execution.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up because that reminds me of another thing that we did not get to talk about at the end of the game because of what happened with the Hail Mary and everything. That particular play, we talked about this in London, where you were in London. I was here about the play where they do the play they set up that they hit with Cole Kmet's first touchdown. Like we've been dying for a team that runs a play like that and hits it for a touchdown. Similarly, we've been dying for a team that will run a play like that 2-point conversion and make it and sort of not make it look easy, but still make it. And you're like, God, there are so many good things that you're like, we wouldn't have been, trading on for days about like, own this, going back and watching again. I did go back and watch it. And I noticed a couple of things like that. Like, yeah, there was just, we have so much meat on the bone, so to speak, about things that we don't talk about because everybody's so wrapped up with the way that the game ended, rightfully so. Like that was an inexcusable loss, but like there were some really cool things that happened. And for everybody who wants to fire Shane Waldron or thinks that we drafted the wrong quarterback, sometimes I'm like, do you sincerely watch the game? Not objectively, because like I know we're fans, we're looking at it from a fan perspective, but it's like, how do you watch it? Like if you're watching it from a fantasy perspective, I get what you're saying. Like, yep, that doesn't help you when the touchdown comes super late or you handed it off. I don't know.
The funny thing is who's the name that all Bears fans have been talking about the last 3 days as far as a coach they'd want? Ben Johnson from
Ben
Detroit.
Johnson.
Ben Johnson. And he's a great play caller.
Yeah.
And we're all railing Shane Waldron for using an offensive lineman to take the ball in for a touchdown in the red zone on the goal line. Well, guess who uses their offensive lineman in all sorts of trick plays in the red zone? It's Ben Johnson and the Detroit Lions. So again, process versus results. What do you and so like to me, that's just part of it is, I think the Doug Kramer play was stupid, but at the same time, if you want Ben Johnson, he's throwing to the offensive lineman too. And you can be like, well, it's a throw versus a run. Get out of here.
You're up though. Like I don't know. I could be mistaken. I'll have to go
had
back
a couple times where he's used them in pivotal.
Is the go ahead? Oh God, I can't remember. Although it would bother me. I honestly, like I would still be like, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, even Leaf Raymond. And you're like, we're going to go with Penny Sewell on adult. I don't know. There's some of it. Like, again, like I'm into it. I love the concepts of it. Like I try not to be the old man. I try not to be the guy sitting out there at some tavern in Sandwich, Illinois, drinking an old style. Be like, why don't we just run it 3 times? Like, I don't want to be, I also don't want to go back that. I just want to have a balance. It's kind of like, listen, I want to go out and have a couple of drinks. I don't want to do a shot of Malort. Like that's just some things that it's unnecessary. You're adding something, a degree of difficulty that we don't need to do. and not in that moment. And I knew it was coming. I just knew it. And it's one of those things, like, especially with Caleb not playing as well. God, I don't know. Because that 2-point conversion does speak to his mock. I think it's just like they're feeling themselves so much. I do want to ask, though, for the go-ahead touchdown, that came on second down. First down was the fade. How did you feel about the fade?
I saw a lot of fans freaking out about that call too, or that decision, because I think a lot of people, and it was revealed that Caleb checked into that.
Yeah.
So once again, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Everybody wants to applaud Caleb Williams for having all this responsibility at the line of scrimmage until he makes the wrong decision in their eyes. And so he's identifying, just like he did in London, where he decided to run the fade to Keenan Allen, and he's saying, this is what I'm seeing in the front at the line of scrimmage. And so that means we're going to go to the fade here. And so he chooses to do that, with DJ Moore on first down. And everybody, I've heard a lot of people say, well, if they had run it and not gotten in the end zone, then they could have ran the clock down more, and then Washington wouldn't have been able to score. But it makes zero sense to me. They were losing.
It was 28. It was 28 seconds. We were still up. Yeah, we might have been in a situation where we needed to use all 3 of our timeouts to get the ball back.
If they had gotten stuffed at the line of scrimmage and now it's second down, they're not letting the clock run down at all.
You almost had to call a timeout.
They would call a timeout right away. So, if you want to argue, okay, but if you throw it, you have a better chance of a turnover versus a run. I might listen to that, but again, you're throwing a fade, so it's either DJ catches it or nobody catches it. So, again, then there's a guy, Cornelius, in the chat. The fade was because they didn't run enough clock. I don't understand. He's either running into the end zone for a touchdown, or if he gets stopped, they're calling a timeout. They're losing. So there was going to be no running of the clock. When you're losing in a game like that, you don't get to say, oh, well, we're going to run it down to 10 seconds.
This isn't Madden. This is not like I want to sit here too. And in an attempt to talk out of both sides of my mouth, I actually really like that play call. And I knew that one had been, I just knew it was a Caleb check. I didn't hear it. I didn't do it. I was like, he probably checked it.
Yeah,
I was fine with it. I was fine with it.
Hell yeah. I wanted Caleb Williams to win the game right there.
I really did. As a fan, you wanted him to have the winning touchdown. Absolutely. And Caleb probably did too. I didn't hate that one. And people that I was watching the game with, like, what does he do? I'm like, dude, we got 3 more downs to run this ball in. We're fine. Now this Commander's defense knows that they can't stack the box. Like, Caleb's crazy. He'll check out of this stuff. Like, don't overload it. Caleb will take advantage of you. So I did like it. So for everything that I hated about the DJ Moore play, I loved about the fade. And even then, I'm coming around now that DJ does need to make. I'm not calling DJ out. I'll never call DJ out. DJ's my guy.
DJ would say he's got.
He can say it. I'm not gonna say it. Like, it's one of those things. Like,
DJ would say, I'm gonna make that play next time.
Okay, like, he can say that. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, you should have made that play. That's not my relationship with him.
That's why I'm the meatball. I'm gonna inspire the truth.
I would say that to Tyler. I would not say that to DJ. No,
every time Cole Kumat walks into our studios, I give him advice on what he could do on certain plays. Like, I always tell him, like, well, Cole, if that was me, like last year, there was a point in the game, I think against the Saints, where he came across a crossing route, deep crosser, and he tried to run around the guy instead of through him. And I told him, you got to run that dude over, Cole. That's what I would do.
That's what I do.
That's what I would do.
I'd run him over.
And he started laughing. He's like, oh, that's what you do. And yeah, that's what I would do, Cole. And then look what happened this year in London. He didn't try to run around the guy. He ran him over. That's called inspiring the troops, guys.
I'm with you. But I always feel too, because I'm a peer with these coaches, that when I'm making coaching decisions, I'm like, I know from my experience, like just this weekend coaching my U10s, I had to make a call.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go into these games and you're like, you know what? Savannah's going to play 3 quarters. And you know what? Actually, Reese is playing better. We got to get her back out on the field. So Reese, get out there. We can't have it. So Savannah, we're going to go try to win this one for you. And we did, by the way. So yeah, I get it. So I felt good about that pass. I feel good about where we're going. Sammy, by the way, are there any questions? I know. Should have asked beforehand. This is me 45 minutes in. Question, Adams, would you suspend Stevenson and play Smith against the Cardinals? Thank you, Scottish Bear. We know that you always are joining us here. We appreciate you. I know that Coach Matt Eberflus talked to him, and they had a conversation that they're going to keep to themselves. And at what point, what is the suspension going to do? I think that Tyreek Stevenson has done everything that he could have done to satisfy what I would need as a coach to go back and establish my faith in them. I was actually in a situation like this where I had a player who did not put out their best effort. And I was really like, I was literally, and they're young kids, but you're like, I'm sort of hurt. Like, mistakes happen. You make bad plays. Like I can never fault, like, listen, we're human beings. We're learning this. The lack of effort and accountability is what I can't deal with. And this young lady was like, you know what? That was my fault. And went out there and worked her tail off. And now you're like, okay, that was satisfied immediately. And I think that as long as Tyreek Stevenson is doing everything he needs to do in practice and what we've seen out of him, taking accountability since Sunday evening, I'm fine with him. I think we're good. I don't know about you, Gregs, but I feel good of where we're at with Tyreek.
Yeah, I'm really torn on this one. I think in general principle, it is always best. Like, I'm old school, and I do see the value in setting a precedent, whether you like a guy or not, and whether he's a great player for you or not. Like, be setting that precedent with everyone. It then sets a standard for any player that's on this team or that comes into this team in the future. And when you don't, I think you open Pandora's box. It's a slippery slope. Then where do you draw the line? And so it's hard. I also really, really like Tyreek Stevenson as a player. I think he's a dog. Like, I think he's he's not perfect. He gets beat sometimes. They pick on him other than some of the, like Jalen Johnson, because they have to by necessity. But like, playing corner is really tough in the NFL. And you got to have that ego. You got to have that confidence and swagger and fight within you, or you're going to get beat up real bad. And so, and the defense is hurting. They don't have Brisker. You don't have Kyler Gordon. And if the Washington game, players were dropping like flies.
Yeah. And
like, I want to win on Sunday. I want this team to win. At the same time, like, you can't, if I'm saying, Tyreek, I want you out there because I want this team to win. I don't want you out because you're going to hurt the team. Well, he hurt the team by being on the field and making dumb penalties too. So, like, man, if you're going to be on the field, you're going to look past things, because he did poke a dude in the eye too and got a penalty for it in a pivotal moment in the game where the momentum was starting to shift. And now you give them another 15-yard penalty. Those are the kind of things in those kind of games. Forget the Hail Mary. And I've yet to really hear him address the fact that he tried to poke that dude in the eye, because if you look, he did this against Nico Collins in week 2. He did the same thing to him where he's jamming his finger through his face mask. And it's like, he's competitive. He's fired up. They're arguing about something. And there's always extracurriculars go on. And of course, it's the Bears that get the penalty for it. But at the same time, it's no excuse, man. Like, you got to recognize the moment. You got to recognize that the refs know you have a reputation for doing those things. Even after he poked the dude in the eye, or tried to, he was jawing with Terry McLaurin after they dove in the end zone on that incomplete pass. And then he reached his hand out for a high five to, like, clean it up, because it always looks bad. Like, you're not sure if they're talking crap, negatively, or if they're just having fun, like, with each
personally,
other. Right. And so the ref's coming up, like, he doesn't know. We don't know on TV, but it felt like the ref didn't know either. Like, how's he supposed to know if they're joking or not? Don't give them that leeway then, or that opportunity then, to throw a flag on you. And so he's young. He's going to learn from these things. But, man, I seriously am so torn on this, because I wouldn't blame Matt Eberflus if he did. But, I also think the other element of it is, I don't think his teammates want him suspended.
Yeah.
Like, when you listen to his teammates talk about him, maybe not every teammate, maybe there's some in there that are like, yeah, he should be disciplined because they're mad about how that game finished. But I think for the most part, the majority of those players in that locker room want him to play on Sunday. So I also think that plays into Eberflus's decision as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good part too, is like the players will let you know how they feel about a certain player or anything like that. And it's going to be involved. And when I think of it too, he's, I know he went to the University of Miami, and you think back to a lot of the Jimmy Johnson University of Miami teams and like some of the swagger that they had and some of the things that he did. And it's like, that can always sometimes come back to bite you, because there were players like, and again, this goes back to NFL history and nobody knowing this, but like there were two players who were supposed to be contemporaries, Deion Sanders and Terrell Buckley, both Florida State corners, a couple years apart. Terrell Buckley ended up playing for the Packers. And so Buckley had the same attitude as Deion without the results. And you sort of like, you sort of like, if you're going to consort yourself in that way, like if Jalen Johnson is doing some of these behaviors, you're like, nah, Jalen, like, stop it. You better be stepping up and making sure that you're not allowing things like what happened at the end of Sunday's game.
Gotta back it up. You gotta back
it up. Like if you're sitting out there and you're out there jawing with the crowd and you're doing whatever, and you one-handed pick that off and fall down and we win, like, that's funnier than what happened. So, yeah, but I think it comes down to the team. The team knows, and there's not like there's a code red, but there's something going on. There's going to be some sort of.
And if you talk about the team knowing, and you're listening to the players, and they've been talking a lot through the media here the last few days, who are they talking more about through the media? They're talking about Eberflus and his coaching decisions. They're not talking about Tyreek as much, maybe a few, but for the most part, the stronger words being sent through the media from the players are about Matt Eberflus's decision making, and it's telling. Yeah. And that's why it's like a lot of fans are like, "Oh, look at the media's out for blood," or everybody's panicking after one loss. I don't think any of that's going on. I still feel very confident. Maybe I'm delusional. That's part of being on Meatball Island. But I think this team can win a couple games here and be 6-3 before they play the Packers and give themselves an opportunity to make a playoff push. Call me crazy, but at the same time, like. It's just one of those things where everybody says, "Oh, everybody's panicking after one loss, and they barely lost off a Hail Mary." Well, no, it's less about as demoralizing as the way they lost was. It's more about what the players are saying after the game and what the coach is saying after the game. That there's red flags going up right now that you have to pay attention to. It can't be ignored, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's why, I'm starting to get a little nervous about being out there on Sunday, because I'm going to be down there in the locker room, and if things don't go well, I'm like, oh geez, when am I going to have to report? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to have to talk about this. But that's what I do. That's our job. How about another question though? If there is one, Sammy. Question. What does it take for us to get the bad taste of this game out of our mouths? Lucas, thank you so much for the question. I think that it's simply a win. And I know that people they'll again be like, well, it's not like you beat the Chiefs or whatever it is. But I think that going on the road, getting another road win, and I'm going to count the Jacksonville game as a road win. I know it was technically our home game. They're playing in London, people. Like you had to travel against a team that is very comfortable playing in London. So similarly, I think you got to go out and win this game. I don't think that anything other than that will not eliminate the taste. And I would even take a game like the Rams game where they do enough and they win. And yeah, maybe it might not look the best, but like they have to get a win, and that will help not completely eliminate it. It's kind of like when you're drinking really strong black coffee and you're like, well, I have a mint and it's sort of helping, but at the same time, like I still taste the coffee. But a win is the only thing that it can do.
100%. No arguments there. If they lose, the more they lose from this game, everything will be dated back to that moment in the Hail Mary. They win, it disappears. It's just that simple.
Yeah. And then ultimately, too, where we keep alluding to the Week 11 game against the Green Bay Packers, I think that's going to be that one is going to be last year. It was I felt it was the final straw for Justin Fields. And I think Matt Eberflus is getting close to that. I don't want to say in week 11, but it's like, home game against the Packers.
I saw Austin on Twitter say, after the loss to Washington, and he's like, I can see it now. The Bears are going to beat the Cardinals, beat the Patriots. We're all going to get hyped up again, and then they're going to play the Packers.
Austin Booker said that?
No, not Austin Booker. Austin Fuges on
Twitter.
Oh, okay. Now. You got to keep up with your Bears Twitter peeps. You know,
I know, but I'm sorry. I thought Austin Booker for a second. I'm like, what is Austin Booker doing?
Not Austin Booker. That would have made some headlines. No,
could you imagine?
Yeah, no, he's been pretty quiet here, and then he wasn't on the field for that Hail Mary. But I digress.
Oh my God, that's another thing too. Forgive me if we talked about this on Monday night, but is Chase Budinger? Is he still playing NBA basketball? Does he still play for the Bulls?
Chase Budinger? Who?
Remember the former U of A guy? He was a U of A basketball player who played for Chicago.
I don't think he's on.
I think he might have played. I think he was in school the same time as Gronk, and I think the Bulls drafted. I thought he did. This is how much I follow the NBA. I just want to draft him. Because I want him on the field, whether it's him or Karch Karai. Let's bring in Misty. I don't care. A volleyball person who knows how to spike the football.
Rome Odunze.
Rome Odunze might have worked.
A guy that when we brought on people that covered him in college, called him a 50-50 catch god. The 50-50 ball. Like, come on. Rome Odunze. Cole Kmet. I mean, you didn't have Darrell Taylor out there on pass rush. You didn't have Austin Booker out there on pass rush. And then Montez Sweat was hurt with a shin injury. So he apparently was not available for that play. That's disappointing because that's the defining moment of the game, and that's your former team. It would have been great to see Montez Sweat end that game right then and there.
Oh my God, yeah.
You know,
we had to have some, yeah.
So, and then you don't have any big guys on the backside. You know, I guarantee the next time they're in that situation, the scheme they call, the rush they call, and the players, it will be a much different play. You can bet your bottom dollar on that.
Well, I'll tell you this too. Like, there's a hole number 8 at Meadowlark. Number 2 is also like this, where if you cover enough water, you can get on the green and 1. I never have the club to cover it. That's a mistake I made once. Now it's a 7-iron off the tee, followed by another 7-iron to get onto the green, or even less. And that's what we do. Hey, can you stick around to answer a couple of more questions?
Of course I can. I'm going to my barber in a little bit. That's the thing.
Okay, when you got to go to the barber, we'll call it. Is it Brutus Beefcake? No. How about some more questions, though, Sammy? We'll bring them out. Did Cliff Kingsbury call a better game than Shane Waldron? Jabari, thank you so much for the question. Well, it's early in the year, so Cliff is still in his bag, so I don't think he's gone through all his tricks yet. I know, because the Commander fans are super rational and they like to listen to reason. Listen, when they got to the end of the game and Doug Kramer fumbles that ball and you have an opportunity, this is the thing about Cliff Kingsbury that I always felt was a problem with him, is like they should have put the Bears away right there. We shouldn't have got the ball back, because they should have held on to the ball and they went 3 and out. So I don't want to see, I come off as bitter or whatever. I don't think he was that. Like a lot of these things, like we talk about stuff, like we were trying to whitewash a lot of things because Caleb played well at the end. I think Washington is getting away with letting that game slip away because of what we did at the end. So I thought Cliff was fine, but I don't think that we need to give up on Shane Waldron by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, Adam Hogue of CHO Bears here made that same point that you're making, that because the Bears lost, it unmasked some things that probably would not have been talked about this week. The play before the Hail Mary and, a lot of other different things that went on in this game. Because when you lose, you're going to look at all the little moments that kept you from winning. And so, and the same can be said the other way around. Like had they won, they wouldn't have been. So now when you look at Washington, not going to talk about anything they did wrong. They probably were contemplating those things for the 26 seconds they were losing in that fourth quarter. But outside of that, they're just celebrating, and rightfully so. Again, this has kind of been the theme of the show here today. Process over results. And that's all fans look at is the results. So you're going to say that Cliff Kingsbury called a better game because of the results. And at the end of the day, all that matters is results. But Caleb Williams was so dialed up, and everybody just wants to blame Shane Waldron to make themselves feel better about Caleb Williams. But Shane Waldron was trying to call plays. These guys were open, and Caleb was missing them. And then the one where DJ Moore dropped that pass over the middle, they could not get going in the first half. And then there were some penalties too. There was a delay of game. So I don't know if that's on the coach or the coordinator there. There was a few false starts. That's not on the coordinator. In the moment, the players got to execute. And so they just weren't. And then once they finally got going, Shane Waldron was in his bag. That run call to DeAndre Swift was great, where you got Karana Amagaji, a third-round tackle who just got called into the fire out of Yale, and he's barely had any practice time from injury. That was a great play call. And everything else they were doing to get Caleb Williams dialed up, those were great calls. And so to me, yes, if you're just going to be even with it, Cliff Kingsbury had a better game. Credit to him. But it doesn't mean that Shane Waldron was terrible because the team couldn't execute the plays he was trying to run. Process over results. And you got to kind of pay attention to the nuance if you're going to acknowledge and make statements like that. At least I'm going to.
No, and it happens like with fantasy football people too, where they'll be like, oh, thanks for telling me to start player X over player Z because player Z had more points. You're like, player Z caught a 70-yard touchdown pass, and it was his only catch of the game, while player X had 15 targets and only managed this amount. Like, you can only do so much. Like, you can be put into a position to win. Ultimately, there's human beings out there that need to execute what they're doing. How about another question, though, Sammy? Oh, Hector, thank you. Eberflus has no in-game awareness, no field awareness. How did he not see Stevenson and call a timeout? Hector, thank you so much for bringing this up. Not only Eberflus, did the guys in the top, did they leave? Were they gone? Was there not somebody watching the field being like, holy Lord, call a timeout, Matt? What is going on?
There is a guy that's his only job.
Should be his job.
His only job is to notify Matt Eberflus when they need to call a timeout. The speed option play against the Colts, where they run up to the line of scrimmage, they kind of get to the line of scrimmage late. The front they're looking at isn't what they practiced. It's Eberflus's job to call timeout, but there's also somebody that's up top as the safety valve for Flus to tell him to call that timeout. And so that happened on 2 plays in a row to end the game. Not just the Hail Mary, but the play before that as well, where you have Eberflus on the field trying to tell his players to come up because now he recognizes what's about to happen. And Caleb Williams is also running to Eberflus to get Eberflus off the field so he doesn't get a flag for being on the field. And there's a guy that's supposed to be up in the box that's supposed to oversee all of this and tell Eberflus in his ear to call a timeout. And that hasn't happened in 2 crucial points here in the season. And then same can be said before the Hail Mary as well. It's silliness. You're up top. Eberflus, depending on his vantage point on the sidelines, may or may not have seen Tyreque Stevenson in the corner field. Yeah. I can already hear Phil Atosha, Draft Dr. Phil, in my ear right now saying, if you're a good coach, you've got to be maniacal. You've got to be looking at everything. And that's true. But there's also this guy that can see everything up top clearly. Yeah. And he's also responsible for trying to help the team out. It's what he's getting paid to do, is to tell the coach to call a timeout when it needs to be called.
Yeah, I feel like when he lost those 2 challenges early in the season, it's really wrecked his mind because he also missed a potential challenge on a trap ball as well. And it's like, now he's scared. And it's like that. Scared money don't make money. Like, if you're going to the casino and you've decided you're going to be able to lose $500, then that $500 is what you got to be able to be willing to lose. Like, if you're going to a card show and you're like, listen, I'm going to spend this much amount of money on cards. I see a Ken Griffey Jr. upper deck rookie. I'm going to go in and buy it and do all that stuff. Speaking of cards, at Windy City Sports Cards, they specialize in buying and selling all things related to Chicago sports. Whether you are a diehard fan of the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, or Sky, they've got you covered with an extensive selection of sports memorabilia and collectibles, and not just Chicago-focused items. They offer a vast collection of sports trading cards and memorabilia from your favorite teams and players, so it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody from Chicago or anything like that. All right, Sammy, how about another question, though? We're rolling now. Hector, thank you so much for that other draft. Do you want to pick up a vet lineman, or do we draft linemen in the first and second rounds? Cam Robinson, either on this show or on CHGO with you on one of the Monday nights, that was one of the players who I identified as somebody I would like to see us perhaps take a run at. The Minnesota Vikings get him. The Minnesota Vikings don't give up a lot to get him. Do you think the Bears are still out on or do you think the Bears would even acquire a lineman at this point with all the guys that have already moved?
I don't see them making a move at the trade deadline. No, I thought before the season, I was predicting they would make a move at the trade deadline before the season, but that was for a pass rusher. I don't feel anymore that Ryan Poles feels like that's a top priority need to give up one of your second round picks. You got two of them. You don't have many picks in this draft this year, and you were hoping that the Justin Fields trade was going to result in a fourth round pick. But because looks like he's not going to play 51% of the snaps or more, that's now a 6th round pick. And so that hurts you even more with what you have in this year's draft. You traded a 4th round pick away to have Keenan Allen on this roster this year. So you're behind the 8 ball. I don't see a need at pass rush, offensive lineman. I know Cam Robinson just got traded to the Vikings, but I just don't see the Bears making a move. And so they're going to, I think, try to let this thing play out for the rest of the year. And then they're going to bolster what is a very good roster here this offseason. And I just think this team will continue to get better, but I don't see them having an upgrade at the trade deadline.
Yeah, and Patrick Bates is also in his 21-day window. So if you're looking, I know it's not the same as going out and trading for somebody, but that is something that
Ryan Bates.
What'd I say?
Patrick Bates.
Sorry, Ryan Bates.
Apologize. Who's Patrick Bates?
I don't know.
I thought maybe he'd be like an actor or a singer.
Probably is. I think he was in. He was on Grey's Anatomy the first season, and Patrick Dempsey has a fist fight with. No, I don't know. How about one more question though?
Wild episode of Grey's Anatomy,
right? Do you guys think Justin Jones goes off in a revenge game? Oh, you know what, hippie nerd? I'm usually keen in on the revenge game narratives. I slept on that one. What do you think about Justin Jones?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly that type of player, right? So he would always be a great quote in the locker room. So he's going to be out for blood, with the Bears, and so. And also, I just think this interior of the offensive line has given up some pressures. So regardless of if he played for this team or not, I think that's always a concern with this Bears roster is their interior offensive line. Coleman Shelton does the best he can, but there's times he gets pushed back. Tevin Jenkins is, playing injured almost every game. He hasn't missed a game yet, so he's battling, but, it's like every game there's like 2 stoppages of play to make sure he's okay, right? And then right guard has kind of been a carousel of, Matt Pryor and Nate Davis and whoever else they can try to fit in there. So Braxton Jones is hurt right now too. So, that's the one thing. Like I said, I think this Arizona Cardinals defense is susceptible to plays being made on them. I don't think this Arizona Cardinals defensive line is otherworldly. It's certainly a beatable defensive line. But the Bears offensive line isn't exactly anything to write home about either. So, I think Caleb Williams is continue to have to stay on his toes and try to avoid pressure.
Yeah, I think so too. And somebody did mention that I don't know. I haven't seen the injury report for today. I don't know if Justin Jones, I know he's been battling some injuries. I don't know if he's back available to go. I know somebody was mentioning this shirt too, by the way. I had to go old school with Mike Singletary today to try to get my mind right. And again, what I talked about at the top of the show, this was one of my dad's favorite sweatshirts. So I'm trying to bring back that whole thing with going out there and seeing the former Southsiders this weekend, just trying to get the vibe right. But if there's another question, Sam, I think we have time for one more. before we bid everybody adieu. We got to get Braggs out to the barber before we head out to Scottsdale, or you're going to Scottsdale. I'm just coming in for the day. Are you concerned with the 4 historic losses under Flus? He situationally hasn't seemed to learn. Okay. Can we talk about
concerned? I'm depressed about him.
Depressed. Last year, the 3 games that we lost, like we were controlling the game. This wasn't a game that we were controlling. We were then doing to a team what had been done to us. Because I think Washington's win probability after the Doug Kramer fumble had to be in the 90 percentile.
Yeah,
just had to be.
It's a good distinction, right? Of the 4 losses, this is the one game that
we were turning it on somebody and still couldn't get it done. And again, it goes back. Again, I'm cool with them. I don't want to suspend them or anything, but it's like it is one. Like even with allowing them to move the ball to the 50, it is still one guy who, again, you don't want to single it down to one person. But at the same time, if you're sitting there hanging out with Noah Brown, and once that ball is tipped, you can tackle him. You don't have to let him push him away. Like, get out of here. Ball's been batted. Now it's free for all. Gosh, that's the one thing. So there are some things that Flus does situationally that I don't like. But if you've ever watched the NFL, you know who used to have horrible clock management, never used timeouts well, always did crazy. Like Andy Reid. This is one of the reasons why they let him go out of Philadelphia. And I'm not trying to compare Matt Eberflus to Andy Reid, but like sometimes these coaches have to go through some things before you learn. You know, it's not like Matt Eberflus spent 4 years. Was he the head coach? He wasn't the head coach at Missouri. He was like the defensive coordinator. But if he had head coaching experience previously, I would be more concerned. But it's like, you got to learn. Like these kind of things come to you with experience. How do you know to like make sure like this is happening? You go through it. And it's usually a tough lesson. Now, hopefully you let's say that Tyreek Stevenson did everything happened the way that it did. But Tyreek Stevenson knocked the ball forward and he got out of it. And then you saw the fan video and you're normally you would want to be like, we could have lost if you had not been, we could have lost that game, but we got lucky. Like that's when you want to learn lessons like that. Unfortunately, we learned it the wrong way. Again, I don't want to ever be in a situation like that again. And that's why I give Matt Eberflus a little bit of leeway of like, he's still, what's his 4th year, still learning on the job. Like we shouldn't be making these mistakes, but you learn about these things through experience.
The one thing I like here, Blue Dan in the chat saying number 29 gets 2 picks on Sunday. See, so you talk about revenge games. Tyreek Stevenson can get revenge on a bad week last week. I like that. I like that angle right there. That would be you talk about how do we turn the page?
Could you imagine? What if he has a pick 6 or something like that?
If he has a pick 6 in a huge game and they win, that locker room will just be going off. Like, man, I like that, Blue Danny. I hope you're speaking something into existence there.
I love that.
I'm gonna earmark that. And when you're right, we'll come back and clip this thing.
For sure. 100%. That's a great way to look at it. But listen, let's I know you got to get to the barber. Let's call this a night. I know we went a little over, which is very nice of you. We appreciate
it's payback, right? We went like 120 on Monday night on Bears After Dark.
For those of you who don't watch the After Dark, now this studio, we could bring in auxiliary lights. But this is a studio that is built on the natural light, much like Wrigley Field pre-1998 or 1988. It's natural lighting, baby. And I was in the dark, both literally and mentally, on Monday evening talking about this stuff and going through it. And I'm a little remiss. You're lucky. I'm going to tell you this, that you and Woot are lucky because I was at the range today. And I was piping today.
Okay.
Oh, I was hitting some balls. My driver still the new tee that I bought for the driving range. It's a little too high. little higher than I would normally tee it. But everything you can see, it goes straight up and like it goes up and then drops straight down in 180. Like I would tee that down a little bit and get a little bit more drive on this. So I'm remiss that I'm not going to be able to golf with you, but I look forward to seeing you out there. Look forward to all the fans that'll be in Arizona. Where are we tailgating? Where are we going to?
We're going to be at a bar in the entertainment district of where the Arizona Cardinals stadium is. It's like called Westgate. There's like 40 restaurants and stores and all this stuff. It's a really cool area. And there's a bar within that area called Salt. And so we'll be there Sunday morning, 10 a.m. Arizona time is when it starts at, I think, noon. We're going to do our pregame show live there. And we're going to be hanging out the whole time before it's time to walk into the game. And we're all going into the game together. And then after the game, a live post-game show at Salt and a live Briggs and Brown show. So you can come on over to Salt, hang out with us, have a chance to hang out with Lance Briggs, Alex Brown, Corey Wooten, maybe Adam Rank makes an appearance.
Am I on the pregame show or no?
You come to Salt and you can take Mark Carmen's place immediately.
Oh, yeah,
immediately. Of
course. My flight's at 7 a.m. Out of Long Beach, and then I'll just go straight to wherever we're at.
Yeah. Well, come on through, and
unless we can have somebody come pick me up too. That'd be nice. Or if anybody can help me out, let me know. Hit me up. I don't know. I think the Cardinals did give me a parking pass, but I don't want to rent a car. In any event, thanks again to everybody. Hopefully we'll see you out there on Sunday. We will be back later this week for the sick picks. Well, I don't know. I don't want to promise.
What are you dressing up as tomorrow?
Oh, I'm going. I'm going to be on GMFB tomorrow, not Friday, but tomorrow. I've got a Halloween costume ready to go. Okay. It'll be very on brand for me. You'd be okay. It's Chicago related, Greater Chicagoland related.
I like it.
It'll be on brand for me. But check that out. Good Morning Football. Then we'll be here for the sick picks later on. I'll do my own post game wrap from Glendale Stadium or whatever it's called now. So I got a credential. I'll be able to go down and talk to some of the players in the locker room after the game and get some reactions. So until then, thank you so much for being here. Have a great evening and the great rest of your week. For Greg, I'm Adam. Bear down, and Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. Brought to you by Circa Sports Illinois.